So we drove down to Southampton the day before, as usual, and we went the normal way, up the A50 from Derby to junction 24 on the M1, down to junction 15A at Northampton, and then up there past Toaster onto the A43 past Silverstone to the M40, one junction down the M40 to the A34, and then it's the A34 all the way to Southampton. Oh, well, most of the way to Southampton to get to Winchester. And really, we had a decent run down until we got there. And it's almost inevitable, as I said before, pretty much any time of day or night, the junction of the M3 and the A34 is an absolute nightmare. And again, Google took us around Winchester, a slightly different route, a little bit more through the town rather than around it. But nevertheless, it got us around, and we got down to the hotel without too much trouble. This time, rather than the Voco, we stayed at the Holiday Inn Express Southampton West. We've stayed previously at the other one, which is reasonably close, which is off the M27. But that, you have to pay for parking. But it's in a nice area. It's adjacent to Hampshire's cricket ground, so there are places to walk, and it's a fairly pleasant area. You can't say that about the Southampton West one. It's in a commercial estate. There's no problem with it. It's perfectly clean and neat and what have you, but there isn't really anywhere sensible to walk or interesting to walk, shall we say. There's nowhere within walkable distance to eat, no little town or anything. There's a Greggs outlet pretty much across the road, but I've no idea what time that closes because that's not really the kind of thing you're looking for. The rooms, well, Holiday Inn Express rooms are pretty much the same whichever hotel you go to. And this was no exception. Perfectly clean, neat, and in good order. The food, well, that's the disadvantage of staying at one of these rather than the Voco. Yes, the Voco is more expensive and sometimes a lot more expensive to stay even for one night. But at least if you're in the Voco or the Leonardo across the road, you've got a lot of places within Southampton to go and have an evening meal. If you're going to stay in a Holiday Inn Express or a similar kind of chain, Premier Inn, say, as like as not, you're going to be out of town and you're going to be rather stuck with their restaurant. There was nothing wrong with the food. It was rather basic. Ruth had a pizza. I had pie and chips. Again, absolutely fine. Took a little while to come, but as you can see, the food was nicely presented. There was plenty of it, but it wasn't cheap. The following morning, we decided we might as well spend time in Southampton. In fact, we got an extra hour. We'd had an email from P&O asking us to delay our arrival at the terminal by 1 hour because they'd done a deep clean. Ventura's had some norovirus issues, and obviously there's had another outbreak. I don't believe there was one on our cruise, but they obviously had a deep clean and they wanted everybody to delay. So that gave us plenty of time in Southampton. We're only about a quarter of an hour away. We got everything organised, had breakfast, which was very nice. Again, typical Holiday Inn Express and or Voco breakfast, although perhaps not quite the choice of the Voco. And we then drove the, say, 15, 20 minutes into Southampton, and we parked at the West Quay multi-storey. And from there, we walked around. We were going to go to the Tudor House Museum and we walked from the car park to the Tudor House Museum using Google Maps. And we came past this place, St Michael's Prison Vault. And as you can see, it's an old wine cellar which has been used as a jail and also as a Second World War air raid shelter. And that tells you a bit about it. And that's basically what you see at the surface. There is a door around the side, so it is possible to go inside, but it wasn't open when we were there. And that's not very far, a couple of 100 yards perhaps, from the Tudor House Museum. And this is a truly magnificent building, as you can see. It's a very nice building, it's a nice museum, nicely done museum. And we went in, paid, we went and had a cup of coffee. The cafe is very good around the back. It overlooks the garden, which we'll see in a moment. There was a little audio-visual introduction, and within the room where they do that, there is a glass case within which is a very, very strange heritage object, I suppose you call it, and that's this leather bottle shaped like a woman, which is supposed to be Elizabeth I. The museum is really well done. The volunteers are excellent in the rooms, and they obviously enjoy their work and are very knowledgeable. We had great fun chatting to them. And this is out in the garden as we first came out. They were doing some repair work outside, hence all the scaffolding. But the garden's lovely, and you come out into this area. You can come out into the area pretty much straight away, I say, which is what we did. We went and had a cup of coffee before we started. And this is the garden. Really nicely done, nicely laid out, little sections all done as a kind of a knot garden. And there's lots of information around the place. There's boards like this telling you all about it. This little seat under this harbour, I suppose you'd call it, would be very pleasant. You can see it's a nice day, but we hadn't got that much time, so we didn't bother sitting down. But yeah, it's a really nice place to have a good wander around. And I think when we go back to Southampton, we'll certainly go back because the tickets you buy last for 12 months. Part of it is what is known as King John's Palace, as you can see here, where it used to be right on the waterfront. The whole area in front of this, which covers things like West Quay Road, the Leonardo and the Vocco, and the City, Mayflower and Horizon terminals, that's all built up ground. It's not natural, it's all built on mud flats as part of development in the 30s. But the encroachment of the old riverside has been going on for a very, very long time. But this is how it was once upon a time, because these were merchant houses where the boats would pull straight up and all your goods would go straight into your warehouses beneath the house. You can see exactly that if you ever go to Cork. As you walk around, there's an area down a fairly steep flight of steps out of the garden. It comes into this area here. There's a cannon, and who doesn't like looking at those? These are beautifully done. That's a little notice. But looking back, you can see these walls, obviously been a city wall at some stage. And this chimney, it's not where it was. As you can see from this notice, it was demolished, but the pieces kept and resurrected here, or re-erected here, I suppose you could say, because it's so old. It's one of the rare examples of a Norman chimney. You get quite a different perspective from down here, don't you? And then we went from there into the museum proper. And as I say, it's a great little museum. It's really well worked on. I can't recommend it enough. But in one of the rooms, we came across this cabinet of these little porcelain figures. Little groups, kind of souvenir pieces, the kind of trinkets that you would buy on your travels back in the day. Most of them were fairly innocent, but not all of them were. You can see on the left, there's one there, the Welsh Tea Party, 3 ladies dressed in Welsh with their little Welsh hats. But on the right-hand side, you've got what appears to be a child using somebody's top hat as a what is known in Britain as a gazunder, because it goes under the bed. And the little line underneath it, which is not terribly easy to read, actually reads, "Necessity knows no law." And it just makes me wonder where on earth anybody would ever have displayed it. When they were restoring the building, they found in one room an amazing amount of graffiti. And some of it shows ships. You can see several in this picture. It's a fascinating. Obviously, people have always wanted to leave a mark for better or ill. After we left there, we started to walk back to the car by a slightly different route. And we came across this on Hampton Street, a huge mural, really big. And as you can see, it was made relatively recently. And this is it. It's quite a beast. You can't see all the details terribly well as it is here, but you can certainly see it if you get the chance to go to Hampton Street and have a look at it. It's really good. And then it was time to take the car to CPS at 2:30 instead of 1:30. And then we dropped the car off. That was very smooth and easy. And we went to go into the departures terminal. The problem was, although we delayed the hour, I don't think that everybody had. And it meant that as we got there, an absolute avalanche of long-distance coaches turned up. And obviously they start throwing off 40 or 50 people per coach. And it didn't take many minutes before the terminal was chock-a-block. And they were having to regulate people going in. It didn't take very long to actually do the check-in. They'd got enough people on and things were moving quite well. Usual setup, exactly the same from Mayflower Terminal. We've had it before. Then there was a queue for security. So they were holding people in a seating area near where the check-in desks are. And then they were escorting people from there, one row at a time, down to the security zone so things didn't get swamped and people get a bit fretful. But all in all, things went tolerably well. We were fairly quickly through the security check, and then we saw the sign that everybody loves to see, to the ship. We got on board, we went and did the muster in Tamarin for us. We'd been told that the cabins were ready, so we walked up to the cabin and found the keys, key cards, put everything away, and basically did an explore for the rest of the afternoon. And then we went down to the Bay Tree restaurant where our fixed time dining was. We'd gone for first sitting, which was about the same kind of time that we eat at home. And for the first night, I had roast beef Yorkshire pud, and Ruth had the always on roast chicken. Something that struck us very quickly was some of the stairwell art. This is something that you'll see a whole video about later on, because I went one sea day. I actually went down all three of the stairwells and videoed all of the different styles of art, because each stairwell has its own style, done by a particular artist for the ship. And these are photo mosaics. So from a distance, you can see one's a football, one's a handbag. And this one is the Arc de Triomphe and a Morgan Roadster. But if you get close up, you can see that they are all made up of these tiny little pictures. How on earth it's done, I don't know. I assume it's done by a computer. Give it a selection of photographs to choose from, and it'll do its best. But I always think it's remarkable how well these things work. Although it's got to be said, cameras actually see the image better than my eyes did. The number one eyeball was not altogether fooled. The 14th of June dawned to a glorious morning. The sky was clear blue, and the sea was about as flat as it could possibly be, especially considering we're moving into the edge of the Bay of Biscay. We have done sea days on Morella, Princess and Cunard before, but so we did wonder what it would be like on P&O, and the answer was there was going to be quite a lot to do, as you'll see from this copy of Horizon, which is their daily newsletter and timetable and what have you. And the first thing to notice is that it's produced on glossy stock, and it's A4, which a lot of companies now are starting to move away from. So that's one definite bonus on P&O's behalf. Our first port of call was the Saffron dining room, which is where you go to have your breakfast. I joined the virtual queue. We like to have breakfast fairly early, so there was never much of a problem. There were never more than about half a dozen people in the queue, and we would get notification very, very quickly, within 5 or 6 minutes usually, that our table was ready, and then you simply walked downstairs to the Saffron restaurant, went up to the desk, gave your name and your room number, and off you went. And the food, when it came, was very good. I haven't photographed it, but I had porridge and eggs Benedict, and it was absolutely delicious. When we got back to our cabin, we could see where we were, and as I said earlier on, we were just heading past the northwestern tip of France and heading down into the Bay of Biscay. Would it behave or not? We decided in the morning to go down to the atrium at, I think it was 10 o'clock, and join the dance class. The two dance hosts were extremely good, very friendly, very welcoming. The biggest problem was there was absolutely no room. You couldn't sit down. All those chairs that you can see in settees and what have you, they're absolutely chock bang full. And we ended up having to change into our dancing shoes up against one of the things at the bottom of the stairwell that you can just see on the left-hand side there. The atrium itself is not that big, and there were quite a lot of people came to do it. And this was a beginner's waltz, which we quite enjoyed, and it got us back into it. We'd done waltzing some time ago. We hadn't danced it in a very long time, and it helped it to come back. The atrium's definitely got a kind of horsey feel, and you've got these two statues, I suppose you'd call them, bronzes, I think, perhaps more detailed, alongside the stairs. The sea was still flat as we came back to the cabin for a break after that dance class. And we then went to a talk on the port, the shore excursion talk. As far as I can tell, it was the only one they actually did, but they described all the ports we were going to go to, which was a bit of a, the jog trot tour, as I sometimes call it, because we were going to quite a few ports and we only had the 1 45-minute session to actually go through it. In the afternoon, we went down for the second dance class of the day. This was an advanced waltz class. And unfortunately, it was a little bit beyond our capabilities at the time. Some of the steps were quite quick, and I'm a bit lead-footed, I've got to admit, so I was struggling to keep up with it. Ruth was really having problems with it, and in the end, we basically gave up. And that actually proved to be quite a problem, because later on, when we went down to the social dancing, Ruth just wasn't in the right kind of mood for it. In the evening, it was black tie, the captain's welcome dinner. And the tables were set with these nice little folded serviettes, which was the same design every time we had a black tie. We had several on the thing. And it was extremely nice, the whole thing, with one slight exception. They brought out this amuse-bouche. I think it was a strawberry Bloody Mary. It was absolutely disgusting, I've got to say. I had one sip and never again. Didn't bother with any of the other amuse-bouche. They were definitely beyond my thing. I forgot to do my main meals, But the suites were extremely nicely presented, and you know, really, really good. In the evening, we went to see the headliners in the theatre, but unfortunately, just like on Cunard, you are not allowed to photograph or video any of the acts or anything else that takes place in the theatre. So we were absolutely stuck with that. And it was a really enjoyable production, but there's nothing you can do about it. That's what we had. And that was all I could actually take photographs of. We then went up to the cabin and had a look at the, took some video from the end of the balcony. And as you can see here, it was absolutely flat as a mill pond. It really was. No problems at all. And in the end, we decided to go down, have a little bit of a walk around the prom deck before we finally finished going up. And we left to an absolutely beautiful evening, as beautiful as the day had started. So that was the first sea day and our first experience of P&O, and it was looking very good so far. Would this continue? We had 2 more sea days to go before we actually reached our first port in Funchal. So I'll see you in the next video and we'll talk through those then.